Open on screen, $230 per metric ton. Hook Russian wheat is landing at African ports at $230 to $245 per metric ton CIF. Comparable Australian and Ukrainian wheat is running 15 to 20% above that price. That gap is reshaping supplier relationships across the continent. Segment 1. The story: Kenya imported approximately 1.2 million metric tons of wheat in 2023. Russia now supplies an estimated 30 to 35% of that volume, up from a marginal share before 2022. The shift follows Western trade realignments that redirected Russian grain flows toward emerging market buyers. African ports became primary destinations. Traditional suppliers including Australia and Ukraine have lost cost-competitive ground in this corridor. This is not a temporary price fluctuation. It reflects a structural realignment of global wheat trade routes, and African grain procurement offices are responding to it. Segment 2. The data: 4 numbers matter here. First, 1.2 million metric tons. That is Kenya's total wheat import volume for 2023, according to trade reporting cited by Business Insider Africa. Second, 30 to 35%. That is Russia's estimated share of that volume, representing a major displacement of legacy suppliers. Third, $230 to $245 per metric ton CIF Mombasa. That is the reported Russian wheat landing price, 15 to 20% below competing origin prices at comparable quality grades. Fourth, current urea is priced at $820 per metric ton, and DAP sits at $658 per metric ton. Input costs remain elevated across the continent, which makes cheaper grain imports a partial pressure valve for food cost management at the national level. African buyers facing high fertilizer costs and constrained domestic production budgets are sensitive to every dollar per ton movement on imported staples. Segment 3. The implication for African agricultural operators and buyers sourcing along the Canada to Africa trade corridor. This shift creates two distinct dynamics. On one side, cheaper Russian wheat compresses margins for wheat-growing regions and domestic flour milling operations that compete against imports. Operators in markets with active domestic wheat sectors need to monitor import parity prices closely, because the $230 to $245 CIF benchmark now sets a ceiling on what domestic grain can realistically command. On the other side, African buyers importing wheat for food processing have a lower input cost baseline in the near term. That opens procurement bandwidth for other categories, including specialty grains, pulses, and Canadian origin agricultural products where Russia does not compete. The broader signal for operators in the Canada to Africa corridor: single origin dependency on Russian wheat carries sovereign and logistical risk. Diversification strategies that include Canadian wheat, lentils, and canola remain relevant portfolio decisions for any African importer building supply chain resilience. Segment 4. Canada Angle Canadian AG.